Today we're going to talk about the cell cycle and mitosis. The cell cycle is the life of your cell. Mitosis is cell division. Mitosis is the last step of the cell cycle. Earlier today we watched a cell size demo, and we've already answered these questions, but I'm going to review them one more time. Do animals get larger because the cells are increasing in size, or because more and more cells are being produced? Animals, like you, get larger because more and more cells are being produced. Everybody in here started out as one cell. That one turned into two, two into four, four into eight, so forth, until you are the number of cells you are today, which are in the trillions. Why are cells so small? Cells are small in order to stay efficient. The smaller the cell, the more efficient it is, the better it can do its job and to keep you alive. How do cells stay small? Cells stay small by dividing into two smaller cells, which is known as mitosis. The cell cycle, like I mentioned, is the life of your cell. It comes in 4 steps or stages. Step 1 is known as G1. The G stands for gap, so it's kind of like a time gap. And during this time gap, your cell is growing, doing what it needs to do. All those organelles are functioning properly to keep you alive. Also, like I mentioned, during this gap, during G1, your cell is growing. And eventually the cell is going to get too large to be able to do the job it needs to do. At that point, it goes to step 2, or phase 2. The second step or phase of the cell cycle is known as the S phase. And during the S phase, all of the chromosomes in the cell need to duplicate, or in other words, make an extra copy. Everybody in here has 46 chromosomes in every single cell. You got 23 chromosomes from mom, 23 chromosomes from dad. And this has to happen so that when that one cell divides into 2, each new cell has 46 chromosomes. You don't want the cell going from 46, dividing into 2 new cells, and each cell only having 23. If it's one of your body cells, you want them to stay at 46. And you also need to remember that your chromosomes are made up of DNA. A way to remember S phase is S stands for synthesis, which means to make. We're making an extra set of chromosomes. The third step of the cell cycle is the G2 phase. It's another time gap, and during this gap, the cell is just double checking itself to make sure all 46 chromosomes got copied correctly. Like I said, each new cell needs to be exactly like the original cell. And then the fourth and final step of the life of your cell is the M phase, and M stands for mitosis. Mitosis. The cell divides into 2 independent cells called daughter cells, and they're called daughter cells because they're genetically identical to each other and to the original cell. 46 chromosomes to start with. Each new cell has 46 chromosomes. I tell students that so they can remember this, mitosis, like your toes, you have 10 toes, you never want to lose your toes. So with mitosis, you start with 46 chromosomes, you don't want to lose your 46 chromosomes, so each new cell has 46 chromosomes. Another review of each of those steps. G1, the cell grows and does its job. S, chromosomes are synthesized or duplicated. G2, it's just checking itself over for mitosis, and mitosis is cell division. Now let's go through and kind of draw a diagram to represent the cell cycle. Like I mentioned earlier, every cell in your body has 46 chromosomes. So I'm going to draw a cell that has a nucleus with 46 chromosomes. That's the G1 phase. The cell is doing its job, needing what it needs to do. The S phase is when the chromosomes duplicate themselves. So I'm going to draw my nucleus, and I had 46, but all of those duplicated, so I have 46 again. G2, it's going to look like the S phase, but it's just making sure that we have two sets of 46. And then with mitosis, that one big cell became two smaller cells, each with the proper number of chromosomes, and for humans it's 46. The length of the cell cycle. Well, how long does it usually take? Well, it depends on your cells and which cell you're talking about. Human muscle and nerve cells do not divide after they developed, and they stay in that G1 phase forever. Think about it this way. If you know somebody or somebody from TV who has damaged a nerve or their spinal cord, they are now paralyzed, or maybe part of their body is paralyzed. It's because those nerve cells cannot go to S, cannot go to G2, cannot do mitosis. They're not making new cells to fix the injury. So they stay in G1 forever. Embryos can complete the cycle about every 3 minutes. The average length of the cell cycle in a typical human is about 20 hours. Cells of your digestive tract reproduce quite a bit. And like I mentioned earlier, your muscles and your nerve cells are not going to reproduce once they've become fully developed. Think about somebody having a heart attack. Your heart cannot regenerate new muscle to fix or repair the damaged muscle. It's always in that G1 phase. The length of the cell cycle. When a cell stops growing, it stops in the G1. If a cell leaves the G1, it will enter the S, and then it will continue through the rest of the cell cycle, eventually entering mitosis, or cell division. I mentioned earlier, brain and heart cells rarely divide. So if you have a brain injury, your brain cells cannot necessarily reproduce to make new brain cells. Skin and digestive tract cells will divide rapidly throughout your life. Your digestive tract is constantly replacing its cells. Cell division and cell growth are carefully controlled. If not, your cells would be dividing out of control and forming tumors. So a mistake in regulating the cell cycle can be fatal because it can cause cancer. Cancer, cells that are dividing out of control, forming a tumor. Cancer cells have lost the normal ability to regulate the cell cycle. So it's like they're stuck in that M phase, and they're dividing, and it does not stop. Some research has been done on the chemical called cyclin. Cyclin regulates the timing of the cell cycle. They have injected cells with cyclin, and when they do that, that cell automatically enters mitosis. So there has been some cancer research done on this chemical known as cyclin. That is the video for today.